You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Music Tectonics, the podcast that goes beneath the surface of music and tech. I'm your host for this episode, Tristan Jaeger, Chief Strategy Officer at Rock Paper Scissors, the music innovation PR firm. If you've been listening to our recent episodes, as I hope you have, you've likely already guessed that we're revving up for our October conference in Santa Monica, California. We're going to continue that revving today, and in anticipation of the fun to come, I'm speaking with two guests who are going to be hanging out with us at the beach, Andre Galuban and Isabella Schilpp. They're both from the Canadian Consulate in LA, and they're both trade commissioners working to strengthen ties between us folks here in the US and Canada's lively tech and music scenes. They'll be joined by 5 innovative music tech companies that you really got to meet, and we'll talk about them in just a few. Though Music Tectonics always attracts people from all over the globe, this is the very first time we've gotten to welcome our fellow music tech nerds from Canada. And we'll be talking today about the scene up north and how the innovation ecosystem works there. So thank you so much for joining me today, Andre and Isabella.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So if you don't mind, I gave a really brief intro. Do you want to talk a little bit more about your position at the consulate and a bit about your background in the space? You want to go first? Yeah, go first, Isabella.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Isabella Schilpp. I am a trade commissioner here at the Consulate General of Canada in LA. And our responsibility as trade commissioners is really just to help Canadian companies expand beyond Canada's borders. So we help introduce them to partners, investors, potential customers, and just general market information here in the Southwest region of the United States. So it's a really exciting job. It's really fun to be able to work with entrepreneurs every single day with some of the most exciting and innovative stuff out there. So it's a great time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
My name is Andre Galuban. I'm the Creative Industries Trade Commissioner at the Consulate. And so I work largely with Canadian music companies and working with them to integrate them, help them find new business within the U.S. music industry, largely in LA. So it's amazing to be here in LA and working with the music industry and repping Canadian music here in LA.
Yeah, there's always been an awesome, strong contingent of Canadians at South by Southwest. So good work.
Thank you.
All right. So can you both give us a feel for the Canadian tech scene? I think a lot of folks are probably curious about the investment landscape, main tech hubs, like where is stuff happening, and what kind of things are Canadian tech entrepreneurs really diving into that you feel are a strength?
Yeah. So the Canadian tech scene it's wide and it's varied. We have a lot of different kind of clusters of tech across Canada. So some provinces and some cities are a little bit better at some things than others. And a lot of that is built out of some of the more traditional sectors that these cities have become really known for. For example, Toronto or Ontario as a whole is really like the traditional tech. So a lot of the software and SaaS products that we see coming out of Canada are built out of Ontario. And that's largely because we have a great university system in like the Waterloo-Kitchener area, which is not too far outside of Toronto. And the engineering universities there have really been able to make some of the coolest sort of SaaS products that we're seeing. If you jump over to Montreal and Quebec City, there's a huge focus on AI and machine learning. And so a lot of our companies who are specialized in those kinds of AI machine learning products are coming out of there. If you jump towards the prairies, it's kind of traditionally oil and gas and mining. But because of that, and because of all the money that's come from oil and gas and mining, they've been able to reinvest that into a lot of like clean tech and sustainability efforts. And now we're seeing that as a huge hub. And then you go all the way the other side to the east, and we've got the Maritimes. We actually have an ocean tech cluster there. There's a lot of sort of public-private partnerships to help make that ocean tech cluster bigger. And so we're seeing a lot of innovation come in terms of fishing. Anything that has to do with sort of ocean tech is coming out of the Maritimes. So there's a great range of expertise in tech from Canada. And I think that's why it translates so well to the US market. And then there's a lot of things that maybe the US isn't great at that Canada is. And so we're able to fill
Wait.
those gaps here in the tech scene.
Of course, that's really awesome. How does this and how does the music scene? Canada has a very lively music scene, a real emphasis on funding and supporting local artists of various kinds. I mean, it's really exciting to see. Andre, how does that interweave with these tech hubs and all this tech energy?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think that's something that Isabella and I are seeing within the last few months. It's something that we're seeing currently. Just being that this is the first time we're running a music tech program, I think it was a good opportunity for us to do a deeper dive into what are the overlaps and the synergies between music and tech. Obviously, within the music industry in Canada, there's a really strong granting system that domestically that offers potential funding to artists and creators. And it's funding that they can access to, develop artistically and develop creatively. And I'd say that there are parallel funding bodies within the music tech space that Canadian companies can access as well. And it's kind of that beautiful overlap where music and tech converge. And I think from a funding perspective, there is also that convergence. And then I'd say also in the conference space in Canada, you're seeing some overlap of, like, for example, a music conference also tacking on tech content, just because there is such an overlap between music and tech. For example, Collision, I think, is a good example where there is creative and entertainment topics discussed because there is such an overlap between both of those sectors. So I think,
that's in Toronto. Is that in Toronto?
That's a Toronto-based conference, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it happens annually in Toronto. And it's largely a tech conference, but they obviously talk about other relevant verticals within the tech space.
Yeah, I know also M for Montreal sometimes has some programming that's relevant to music tech. They're mostly focused on performing arts and music side of things when it comes to their conference.
But M for Montreal is a great example of another conference where, it's a creative conference, and because it's a creative conference, it tacks on, many different types of content that's related to music and music tech. And Montreal being such a hub for AI, I think you're seeing a lot of very strong AI music companies that are developing within the music industry space from an AI perspective.
That's awesome. So, what are some of the most awesome Canadian music-related companies that Americans may not realize are Canadian?
Yeah, I have a couple that I'd like to name. I was just talking about Montreal. Yeah. Lander is a Montreal-based company.
Oh, totally.
That's a music tech company, provides AI-driven tools for mastering, distribution, collaboration. So it helps artists, producers, labels create, distribute, and promote their music. So it's a great platform. And then Lyric Find is another Ontario-based company, global leader in the lyric licensing and data solution space. So it provides licensed lyrics to digital platforms, streaming services, and music publishers, and at the same time ensuring songwriters and rights holders are fairly compensated. So those are the two that I think are doing really great work from a global perspective in the music tech space.
Amazing. What role do government organizations or programs play in supporting music tech innovators? Again, you already mentioned that there's these funding bodies that work both with creative artists and with music tech startups and innovators. How does it work? Are there particular programs or approaches that have proven particularly successful that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the easiest ones to highlight is the ones that Andre and I run ourselves. So we're part of a body within the federal government called the Trade Commissioner Service. And as I said, from a very high level, our focus is helping Canadian companies expand beyond Canada's borders. But we do that through also solidified accelerator programs like this. So there is programming that's done and curated to each subsector, and in this case, it's music tech. And we're really here to sort of be the eyes and ears for companies, find those opportunities, bring together a cohort, and hopefully match those opportunities with companies who need them. And we are two of many thousand trade commissioners across the world. We've got 160 offices around the world who are dedicated to doing this kind of programming. So outside of just a funding mechanism, there's also like really structural things that are going on to help support these music tech companies. We're running one in the US. Our colleagues actually in India recently just ran a program focused on this intersection as well. So music tech is definitely one of those subsectors that we're realizing is something that's not only prominent in Canada, but it's also something that Canadians are particularly innovative in. So we want to make sure that they have this sort of structure to be able to spread the word and show everybody the cool stuff that they're making.
Yeah. To add to
what are the? Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Andre. Sorry.
To add to what Isabella was saying, with this program that we're running is called the Canadian Creative Accelerator. The CCA is what we call it, and right now the cohort focus is music tech. It really started as largely a music accelerator. So at first we were servicing Canadian independent labels, and then it's sort of expanded into working with Canadian artist managers. And within those artist manager programs, we pick a theme. So in the past, we've done Black artist managers, Latin artist managers from Canada. And so we're able to really focus in on a specific subsect of the music industry and create and generate opportunities for those specific companies that are looking for very specific industry connections with heads of A&R or music supervisors or agents. And so it's really a tailored government export program, I'd say, is kind of the umbrella term that we'd use. And it's, creating opportunities for these different types of Canadian companies that are looking for specific opportunities outside of Canada. And so music tech, I think, is just another example of types of companies that we want to work with, and then the types of programs that we can offer that's curated and tailored to a specific subset of companies as well.
That makes a lot of sense. So I was curious, as you're working with these companies or with folks in the creative sectors, what are some of the biggest challenges they're facing that you feel you can help them get through as they try to move outside of their home country?
So I think sometimes the biggest challenge is, even though Canada is a very close neighbor of the US, there are some real big cultural differences. And so sometimes just having exposure to being here and doing business here in the US is a really important factor in being successful for a Canadian company, and understanding those very, very different, cultural differences, as I mentioned. I think the other big thing that we can kind of help them with is understanding the investment landscape. In Canada, it's a bit more conservative in terms of like institutional investment from VCs and angels. And so oftentimes Canadians come here for money from an institutional perspective. And so we can help them navigate and understand like what the VC landscape really looks like right now, where the appetite is, and help make those introductions. So I think those are sometimes the most valuable things we can help them understand as they kind of look to export here.
I think to add to that, another challenge is if you look at Canada's market share and market size, it's significantly smaller than the US as a whole. Like Canada's population is, I think, around 40 million, which Texas alone is 38 million, 40 million. So really Canada's population is the size of a large state in the US. And so there's so much more opportunity to access outside of Canada because the market size in Canada is so small. And so these export programs, I'd say, are a conduit to new opportunities outside of Canada because there's already such a small market size in Canada, which there is opportunity domestically, but the US is, so close to Canada and an opportunity for countless more business opportunities. And so it's a challenge, but also an opportunity for us to, find a sweet spot in terms of servicing companies that are looking to export.
What are some of the cultural differences, if you don't mind me asking? I always love these questions. What are some ways that Canadians and Americans could come to understand each other better?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's as simple as the classic Canadian sorry. I think
you have nothing to be sorry about, Canada.
Yeah, I think Canadians tend to be a bit softer in their approach. And I think when it comes to things like raising funds or trying to close a deal, Americans expect a bit more of a straightforward approach that sometimes Canadians have to learn how to do. So just putting aside, still incorporating classic Canadian politeness, but also not being afraid to ask for what you need is a big kind of learning curve that we see with a lot of Canadian companies. And that can trickle into, just everyday interactions with potential partners and customers that they're talking to. Or it can also, on a larger scale, if they're pitching, like that changes what your pitch deck looks like. That changes how you structure your ask. It changes who you go to. So it's a small thing, but it is very integral to the Canadian personality and culture that we don't try to unteach. We just try to teach how to use in the right way here in the US.
I'd agree with that. I think especially in the music manager space, there's, I don't know, when you're pitching to a head of an A&R at a label, they want to hear the success that your artists have had. And I think there's a politeness that Canadians have, which is great, but I think sometimes doesn't translate into the US industry I'd say maybe in any sector, but for me in the music sector. And so it's, yeah, like Isabella is saying, teaching clients, Canadian companies, how to pivot their pitches to executives so that it translates in the way that executives are expecting, in terms of, I don't know, in a way talking your shit, and them understanding the success that you've had in Canada and internationally, and that it's equivalent to the success that can be had in the US as well.
I love that. That's a wonderful thing to observe and consider. Being a Midwesterner, that seems very, very natural. I think we have to learn some of those same lessons if you come from a certain background here in the US. I also imagine, since Canada is it's a more tight-knit community, right? And there's also more, if you said there's more conservative perspectives in the investment community, you're probably having to do a bit more of a relationship dance, whereas here you may want to come out just guns a-blazing, excuse the Second Amendment reference here, but and state your point and be a little more aggressive and confident in your approach, which wouldn't necessarily fly if you're pitching someone who needs to know something very different.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, that goes for any other market, even, they may look at the US and then eventually look to a different market. And I think that's where our roles really come into play, is we're here to really understand that the market that we're in and feed that right information into Canadian companies. So yeah, to your point, it's all about being agile and adjusting where we can.
Amazing. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to talk about the 5 companies that will be coming with you to Music Tectonics.
The Music Tectonics Conference is already kicking it into high gear. Join us on Zoom September 11th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, that's 6 p.m. UK time, for the Music Tectonics pre-conference and Swimming with Narwhals semifinal pitch competition. We'll be kicking off with a keynote from Media Research's Tatiana Cirasano, hearing about the bit verification happening across the music industry. Immediately following, we'll be joined by our 10 semifinal narwhals to pitch their startups for a jury of experts, including angel investor Kristen Grant, Sunjen Young of Influence Partners, and Deek Velagondola of Waverly Capital. To end the event, we'll open it up to the audience for Q&A with our panel of judges. This pre-conference event is open to all Music Tectonics badge holders. Mark your calendar for September 11th and head over to musictectonics.com to secure your badge now.
Okay, we're back with Andre and Isabella to talk a bit more about the Canadian innovators who are going to be joining us in Santa Monica. So we've got 5 folks, but you're running an incubator. You've gotten to know a lot of different music tech companies from around Canada. Have you spotted any trends in the companies that have sort of informed you or maybe deepened your understanding of what's going on in music tech?
Yeah, I think when we set out to recruit for this program, so when we launch these accelerator programs, it typically starts with a recruitment process where Canadian companies apply into a program, and then we select the top applicants based on which companies would likely find the most amount of success in the US market, but also who would be the best fit for this program as well. And when we're recruiting, we also look at trends as well. And so before we even started recruiting, we met with a few local companies in LA to really do a deep dive in what are the trends that are most prominent in music tech, and that would make the most amount of sense for us to recruit as well. And so we kind of set the stage to look for specific types of companies. And I'd say those big trends were fan to artist engagement, how to develop the relationship between fans and artists. AI music creation was another big one where, in a digital audio workstation, how to transform the production, mastering, mixing experience for producers and music creators. Web3 was another one that we've seen as well. But I'd say AI and fan to artist engagement were the big trends that we noticed.
Yeah, and I would say it's interesting because especially that AI piece is such an enabling technology that Canada has gotten good at in so many other sectors. And so I think when we did recruit and we started to receive those applications, we saw a lot of companies who were doing really interesting things with AI and in different applicabilities across the music sector, whether it was targeting artist managers, whether it was targeting the labels or the studios. They were utilizing their expertise in AI in different ways. And I think that kind of is reflected in our cohort this year. We've got a couple companies that are AI, but in very different ways, and are using it to solve very different problems. So yeah, I think that was kind of a running theme through a lot of the applicants that we saw.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of focus on big generative AI companies, but there are so many different ways that AI can slip into the workflow for many different players in the music industry. So I'm excited to talk about the 5 companies next. Now, which ones are involved in? Do you feel are using AI the most? In a creative way?
Yeah. So I think we have a company, Spotify, who is using AI in a really unique way to help manage the creation of music. And I think maybe, I hate to put you on the spot, Andre, but I feel like this one is particularly, you're better suited to explain it since you actually have a background in music.
Yes. I can expound on that. So Spotify, they're utilizing AI in the creative process. They've developed an AI-powered app designed for derivative music generation. So it allows artists and producers to create and extrapolate new ideas from their existing content while also maintaining signature sonic aesthetics and quality. It's AI largely beneficial for producers that are pitching music or for writer-producers that are pitching music to artists. And it's able to sonically develop the music that they're creating to align itself with a specific pitch to any artist that they're pitching to. Artist or sync, I guess it applies to that as well.
That's really interesting. And that was Spotify, because it's close to the name of a certain other company that sometimes uses AI. Cool. So let's get the other 4 folks here too. To move away from AI for a second, one of the most interesting companies that I noticed is HHHusher. They have a couple H's. Yeah. And they are making a hi-hat isolation device that can be used in studios and live to solve a very specific sonic problem with a cool little doohickey. And Andre and I were talking a bit before everyone jumped on and we started recording about how interesting this is as like a hardware category. It's very unusual.
This company kind of sits in its own space, I'd say, of the entire cohort because they are hardware. They're the only hardware company that we have in this cohort. What they're doing, I think, is unique to a lot of the companies that we saw just in general, just with creating a device or a tool that is key for the studio experience or for, drummers, sound engineers that are looking to develop how the hi-hat is used in the studio space. And so, it's really exciting to see a company that's kind of sitting in their own vertical in a way.
Yeah. And I think it's particularly cool too, because they built this out of their own need. They come from such a deep music background and they're in the recording studio seeing the fact that they're having all this bleed, and they really created it for themselves and realized that this is a problem so many people are facing. So I think like so many great ideas are born out of your own personal problem that you have. And then you get to make something that not just benefits you, but a lot of people. So it's a really cool product.
Amazing. So another company, and they actually seemed quite far along on their journey, was Tradable Bits, and I think that plays into the artist-fan relationship stuff. So it's a gamified platform that helps with event and other promo, and it seems like they've made some headway with sports so
Yeah.
far. Though they also had Live Nation and a couple other major promoters on their site. Can you tell us a bit about what they're up to and why you chose
Yeah.
them?
Yeah, so we've actually been working with Tradable Bits for a while. They participated actually in a sports accelerator we ran a couple of years ago, and they've had a lot of success in that arena with live venues and that kind of thing. And so now they're looking to expand their offering into music. And I think what's interesting is it's almost irrelevant what sector they're working in. What they're really good at is understanding the fan and how the
Mm-hmm.
fan engages with the live experience from beginning to end. So even before they get there, all the way till after they go, what is the fan doing? Where are they? How are they engaging with different pieces of this? Why are they coming? And then that kind of data can really be used to understand super fans, hopefully make more super fans, and also understand how do we engage people who are like them to get new fans on board. So that kind of like really deep metadata is what they work with, and they found huge success because of it. So I think they have nowhere but up to go, and they're in obviously a great place now, but they're really excited to kind of dig their claws into the music scene a bit better and work on the live scene on that side. So we're excited to work with them again.
Yeah, it's so difficult to get reliable data about who's actually going to a concert and what they're doing. So it's been a problem that the industry has been grappling with for
Yeah.
forever recently. I mean, with the desire, the digital possibilities are there, and it's been really hard to implement. So it'll be exciting to talk more with the Tradable Bits crew about how they're addressing that. Speaking of bringing people together, we have Sessionwire, a collaborative virtual studio. Andre, do you want to tell me a bit more about them and what they're up to?
Yeah, Sessionwire, I'd say, is in terms of virtual meeting rooms, it's created for the studio experience specifically. And so it really brings together, artists, writers, producers that are collaborating that need to collaborate virtually. It's designed for that experience specifically. And so their platform aligns itself and is compatible with a lot of the different digital audio workstations. It's very secure in terms of how you send audio files and different audio formats. And so it's very compatible and aligns itself very nicely with a lot of producers, that want to be careful about how they're sending their audio specific stems as well. And so it's very much so perfect for the studio experience.
And last but definitely not least is a company whose name I'm going to probably mispronounce, which is Mookie.
That's it.
Yeah,
I hope it's Mookie because that's really fun to say.
yeah, it's fun to say and it's fun to read. It's a great name.
What in the world do they do?
Yeah, so they're another company that is utilizing Canada's expertise in AI, and what they do is they use generative AI to basically help artists engage with their fans via WhatsApp or SMS. So instead of it being a one-way communication where the artist can then send, oh, here are my tour dates via SMS, instead what you can do is have a back and forth conversation with the artist via SMS or WhatsApp. And AI is able to answer your questions. It helps provide the tone of voice as well of the artist. So you can get any and all information that you want about what the artist is doing, where the artist will be, where the merch is available, all that kind of stuff via SMS. So yeah, it's pretty cool. They've already launched with a number of artists in Canada, and they're looking to make that launch here in the US. So we're excited about being able to hopefully help facilitate that when they're here.
I'd say it's similar to the way that artists, they'll kind of have a tagline of, hey, text my phone number. And then when you text the phone number, you're able to receive updates from the artist about when their next tour date is or when their music video is dropping. It's essentially like that, but I'd say a way to develop that to where there's a more conversational approach between the artist and the fan. And so it's specific to that space, which I think is niche, but also fantastic for them.
Yeah. SMS has always been a really great channel for a lot of fans, but it's so difficult to implement, right? It's a very demanding and cumbersome communication format. Yeah. So automating some of that could really lift a load from an artist team.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. So we've heard about the companies. What are you two most looking forward to at the conference? What are you hoping to experience or enjoy when you join us?
Well, I'm excited to spend a couple days at the beach. That's always a great bonus
I hear you.
to
I
any
hear you.
conference. No, but I'm really excited this will be my first sort of music focused thing. And so I think I'm excited to kind of be surrounded by creatives.
Oh,
I think
cool.
it'll be a nice change of pace from some of the other activities day to day that I have to do. So I'm really excited to just be inspired by people's creative thoughts and ideas on how to apply this tech into a really fun and exciting sort of subsector. And I'm excited also to support the companies and hopefully meet some interesting people that I can connect them with. So yeah, I think overall, it'll just be a great couple of days full of learning, at least from my end.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think for me, I've never been to a music tech conference, and so I'm excited to meet a lot of folks that are working in the music tech space, whether it's new founders, new startups that are LA based, but also the larger music companies that have divisions that are innovating the music space from a tech perspective. I'm just excited to learn a lot more about this space and make introductions between the Canadian companies that are in LA with some of those prominent and relevant music companies that are looking for innovation into their tech from a music perspective as well.
Yeah, awesome. I think you'll find the community really, really welcoming and friendly and quite international as well. So we're going to have some other delegations. It sounds very formal, like we're going to parade around with like banners or something. But there are other delegations from places usually like Norway, Korea, all around the world. And it's a wonderful learning experience. It's really interesting to hear how people are approaching some of the same problems that everyone in music is kind of dealing with around the globe. So, well, we'll have a blast on the beach. Thanks so much for joining me, Isabella and Andre. It was a really, really fun to talk about Canada and the tech scene, and I'll see you in LA soon.
Yes, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. This was great.
Thanks for listening to Music Tectonics. If you like what you hear, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We have new episodes for you every week. Did you know we do free monthly online events that you, our lovely podcast listeners, can join? Find out more at musictectonics.com. And while you're there, look for the latest about our annual conference and sign up for our newsletter to get updates. Everything we do explores the seismic shifts that shake up music and technology, the way the Earth's tectonic plates cause quakes and make mountains. Connect with Music Tectonics on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. That's my favorite platform. Connect with me, Dimitri Vitsa, if you can spell it. We'll be back again next week, if not sooner.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.